Wait.
Tell me your story. You started already?
Wait, don't
She's
start
obviously
it yet.
not ready.
I'm not ready.
That is our story. We wanted to make a video, almost like a journal entry of our story together and kind of how it happened, because we really do think it is divine, really, and we think that there was some heavenly help. And it kind of goes back to, we could start with high school actually.
Yeah,
We could talk about it. So in high school, I met my good friend John Pettit at a scout camp at Random. And it turned out that his friends in high school were actually like my friends that I grew up with in dance class through junior high and elementary, that we were all in the same stake. I said, hey, you know these people? He's like, those are my friends. And so I met this group of friends, including Seth Crofts and Julie Farr. And it turned out that Leanne actually knew a lot of the girls in my friend group.
Yeah, so I was really good friends with Julie Farr and Becca Peterson. And so I would sometimes go and hang out with this group of people. But I never met Danny. Or at least I don't remember ever meeting him. Like, I remember everyone else except maybe like Paul. But I remember John and Seth and like a lot of them, but never remember meeting Danny, which is so funny.
Which is a blessing in disguise. Also, what's funny is I dated one of her closest friends. She was my first kiss, my first girlfriend, everything.
Who my cousin also dated.
So we had all these connections that we just never even realized that we never really met.
Yep.
And thank goodness for that, because I wasn't ready. When she told Julie that she had met me and was kind of dating me, Julie was like, oh no. So
she's like, I've hoped he's grown up since high school. And I was like, what is that supposed to mean?
I was pretty great in high school, okay? But I did need some time. The mission helped. After the mission and after at Utah State, I started getting back into rock climbing, which I had done as a kid. I grew up rock climbing with young men's and venturing. And when I finished Utah State, I started a rock climbing group in which we made a group of friends, and I started inviting new people, and we would go to Moab and we would go on trips. And then things didn't end well between me and another person in that group. I had dated someone and we didn't end well, so I kind of took a step away from that group, little knowing that Leanne knew someone in that group.
Yeah, so I was really good friends with Jenica. We had played club volleyball together, and then we'd also gone to BYU Idaho together. And so with COVID happening, I like moved back to Salt Lake, and I was like, I have like no friends. So all my friends are like either married or BYU Idaho, but she was home. So I was like, Jenica, can I hang out with you? She's like, yeah, come climbing with me. And so I started going climbing with her, and then I met Matt, who was part of that group, and just started meeting like Matt and Will and like more people in that group. But I never met Danny. Time passed, and I had been dating this guy, and things ended with him, and I was like, hey, I need like a new scene, I want to get a new ward and everything. And so I knew these friends, and that they, had a good ward, and I was like, hey, can I join your ward? And they're like, yeah, for sure. And that was Danny's ward.
Which was the ward that I moved into because of Seth, my good friend that I'd met in that earlier
all
connection.
Full circle.
So I moved into this ward because of Seth, and I ended up staying because I loved it so much, even though I wasn't in the boundaries. And it turns out I was in the boundaries of the ward of her ex-boyfriend. So if I had been in that ward, we would probably never have even met, or
maybe
if we had, we would never have dated because it's been weird. But Matt and I became friends through Seth, and so Leanne started coming to our ward, and I remember seeing her, and she was sitting with one of the other girls in the ward that I was interested in, Josie, and they became really good friends. And I didn't know what to do, and we would meet, we would talk to the bishopric, our friend Joe and I, we would talk to one of the bishopric members and like, yeah, we just don't want to date in the ward, but Josie and Leanne are kind of cool. And I said, Joe, let's just do it. Let's go on a double date. I'd had some bad experiences dating in the ward, and so had Joe. But we decided we're gonna do it. And I was like, I'll take Josie, you can ask Leanne, it'll be great. And we'll go on a date.
Okay, my side of the story, I had like moved into the ward, first day in, I meet Josie, and she was fairly new to the ward too, so we just started staying together. And I remember the Sunday that I first noticed Danny was when he was playing the piano in church, and then he also gave a talk. And I was like, not every guy can play the piano really well and give a talk like and it not being dumb, like being a good talk. And I was impressed. I was like, hey, I'm interested like in this guy, he seems cool. And then like I think that same day you and Matt sat in front of us at Sunday school, and I was like, oh great, he's friends with Matt. But because Matt was kind of interested in me, so I was like, ew, this is kind of awkward because the one guy I'm actually interested in for the first time in a long time was friends with the guy who's interested in me. It was,
you know, because what's not to like? I mean.
Oh my gosh.
But we didn't really talk. There was a time when I was in the elders quorum, I still am, and I reached out to Leanne to see if she had the sacrament.
Oh yeah, this was like such a weird.
So I messaged Leanne. I'm like, hey, do you have the sacrament available to you? And she responds with, yes, I do. Also, awesome job on your musical number. And I said, thank you so much. I hear that you play the piano as well. And she like...
No, you like said, you were like, so you must be a musician as well. Or
yeah.
I was like, how did you know that?
I had actually looked her up on Instagram. I started, because I noticed her in the ward and I thought, she's kind of cute, you know? But I was interested in Josie. But I told her, I was like, oh, it's always the musicians who like compliment the others. Cover. So I slipped that in. She's like, okay, cool. But then I just dropped the conversation. I'm like, hey, we'll have a great Sunday, Leanne.
Yeah, he just ended it. I was like, oh, well, I guess he's not interested at all, so guess I'll just never have an opportunity that way.
But because I thought that I might be interested, I was like, I'm not gonna go about this the same way that I go about every other thing. I kind of we'd been learning like building friendships with someone.
Yeah, we started going to Institute.
Which is all about dating. This institute, all about dating.
Perfect, right?
Yeah, building a friendship with someone, making sure that you start that first, so then you have something to fall back on, because romance is not gonna carry you through a marriage. And I'm like, that's so funny. And we had our last class, and Leanne couldn't make it that time. But we had our last class, and at that time, he was like, don't be afraid to try. And I'm sitting next to Josie, and I'm like, I gotta ask her out.
Yeah.
And so I go over to Josie's place. I made up some dumb excuse to come pick up some disposable Tupperware. I'm like, Josie, Joe and I want to do a double date. I'd love to take you. What do you say? And Josie's like, sure, why not? And I'm like, this has never happened to me before. I've never.
He was greatly humbled in that moment. It was very good for him.
So I'm like, okay, like I'll talk to Joe and we'll figure it out. But thinking like, what?
And I like talked to Josie and she tells me about this, and I was like, she's like, I'm just not interested in going on a date with Danny. And I was like, why not? Like, I was like, he seems super cool. Like, why wouldn't you want to go on a date with him? She's like, I don't know, I'm just not interested. And I was like, I don't understand this girl. Okay. She's like, I'm leaving anyways. She's like, but you're gonna be asked out by Joe. And I was like, I didn't even know who Joe was at this point. I was like, who's Joe? How is he gonna ask me out? He hasn't even talked to me. Like, oh well.
Well, so that date did not happen. Josie went back home to Georgia with her family, and Joe and I ended up taking 2 other friends, and we went on a date, and it was fine. But at that time,
clearly it was a life-changing
It was a life-changing because here we are. So Leanne was around, and Josie was not around at this time, but then Matt invited me to start climbing with Leanne. So the 3 of us started climbing, and I started being like, this girl's really cool, and we would quote movies together. We'd be climbing, she'd be belaying, and I'd be sitting next to her and would be quoting Princess Bride.
Yeah.
And be like, why don't you give me a paper cut and pour lemon juice on it? And she quoted, I was like, that's so cool that she can do that. And I had a really good friend that was never really interested in romantically, but she could quote movies, and I was like, I would love that in my future spouse. So this is super cool.
That's what he's looking for. Can they quote movies?
Can they quote them with me? I thought this is super cool. So we started building this friendship, and I had invited them.
There was also, okay, we gotta talk about the game nights.
Yes.
Okay.
So we had invited them. I had made sure that Josie and Leanne got invited to game nights.
Which we were so surprised. We're like, how did we get invited to this? Because we were like, we didn't know like anyone in this group chat. They were suddenly added to. We're like, wow, like we were picked out of who knows who to join this.
So I made sure they got invited, and they started coming. And we'd do online, but then we started doing them in person. And one of the in-persons...
It's the midst of a pandemic, okay.
This is in December. And one of the game nights, she brought her brother Ben too.
So I brought Ben, and I was, you know, obviously interested in Danny, but I like, things were complicated for me at the moment. And Ben comes and like...
I'll explain complicated. she had kind of got back with her ex,
okay,
trying to
we
figure
were just
things
talking.
Out. Trying to figure things out. Yeah. Not anything like huge, but
yeah,
we need that in the video because it's gonna come to play later on.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. That's very true. And Ben comes in, meets everyone, and him and Danny just hit it off. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, they can't get along really well because I'm already interested in him, and they'll just make me more interested in him. I know I don't have a chance. Like, he's clearly not gonna ask me out. And I remember as we were driving home, I was like, so Ben, what did you think of Danny? And he's like, he's a really cool guy. And I was like, yeah, if he asked me out, I would totally get out with him, but he would never ask me out, so. It was a hopeless case.
We had started kind of talking more. We'd go to game nights, we'd go rock climbing, and we'd visit more. And I was getting to the point where I felt like we were starting to build a connection. I was like, maybe I'll ask her out. When I'd gone down to St. George with my cousin, I was like, I like Leanne. I think she's super cool, but I don't want to blow it. I don't know how she feels. And
apparently I'm really hard to read.
Very hard to read.
I'm terrible at flirting, so.
You're very hard to read. So I'm just kind of not really used, I didn't really know. I was more focused on the kind of girl that I needed in my life now, which is absolutely Leanne. The kind of girl that's, and I'll talk more about that at the end, the kind of girl I need. But I was like, I'm gonna ask her out. And I went climbing with Matt one night, and
wait,
Leanne
was
couldn't
this
make it.
before or after you gave me the Harry
okay,
Potter
so I
book?
had given her a Harry Potter book. We'd joked about reading Harry Potter in Spanish.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know, I'm gonna kind of like give her a sign, like, hey, I'm interested. So I went to Barnes and Noble, and I
like
bought.
My favorite store.
I bought Harry Potter in Spanish, and after Institute, I gave it to her.
And I was so confused.
And she gave me a hug, and we were like, I was like, okay, but I'm like, okay. She kind of like should know a little bit, like I'm interested.
But I was like, why would he give me a book and not ask me out? Like, I don't understand. Who is this guy?
I was moving in slow.
Very slowly.
Like a lioness. After that, and kind of being like, hey, we were talking still, and I would go to her soccer games to support, and we still haven't I still haven't asked her out. We haven't been on a date, and I didn't know that she was still kind of seeing this other boy while she was getting to know me. But I went rock climbing with Matt, and she couldn't make it that night. And Matt, because he'd been interested in Leanne, he started kind of venting to me about it, and I didn't tell him I was interested. I was like, no, that's a two-edged sword, that's gonna blow up. But he tells me, he's like, yeah, she's doing stuff with her ex, and I just don't get it, like, that's crazy. And I looked at him like, what? I had no idea. I'm like, really?
That ruined it.
So I'm listening very intently, like, no way. And at the end, I'm like, maybe I misread everything. Like, maybe she doesn't really like me, maybe I was being used, like, to get to this guy, make him jealous. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna ask her out. I'm not going to.
But, okay, so then I get wind that this conversation had happened through the grapevine of gossip. And thank goodness for that, because that saved it. Because I found out, and I was like, crap, I gotta do something. Like, Danny needs to know I'm interested. But I'm not the kind of girl, like, I've never been the kind of girl who, like, goes up to a guy and is like, I like you. Like, I don't have those guts. So I texted him, well, we were already texting, and I was like, yeah, I've been reading the Harry Potter book, but it's so hard to read it by yourself. In Spanish, it'd be so helpful to read it together out loud.
Like a softball pitch, like, don't miss, don't miss. Hey.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, shove, shove.
It's a good thing that I played baseball growing up. So I was ready for the pitch. And I showed it to my sisters. I'm like, I'm not misreading this, am I? I'm like, because this is happening. And I'm like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, what? I got nothing to lose. Nothing to lose, I'm just gonna do it. So after volleyball one night, and little did she know there was another girl that had just moved in the ward that I thought was super cute too. And I was like, okay, I have to figure it out.
Lots of options.
No. At 2.
So did I.
Okay, and I'll go full circle.
Okay.
And I decided that I was gonna ask Leanne out that night. But this other girl came, and I was like, okay, I can't. So I had to leave early, and I texted Leanne, I was like, hey, FaceTime me after, and she does. And I was like, hey, let's make it a date. We'll go read Harry Potter, we'll go grab dinner, we'll make this a date, okay? And she's like, yeah, that'd be great, I'd love that. And
afterwards, I'm like, finally.
And so we did, we started planning this date, and I didn't realize, but she was planning in her mind, she was like, okay, I like him, but this date's gonna go very poorly, and then I can focus on this other relationship that I've spent time in developing, and then I don't have to worry about this.
I was like interested in Danny, but I couldn't really focus on it because I was so stressed about this other relationship and trying to figure out if that was gonna work. But I was like, but Danny's like a really awesome guy. I don't want to just throw that away. Like, and this other relationship, like he had been like dated around, and I was like, hey, and I found this actually a really good option, but like you're not doing anything. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll go on a date with him. It's probably gonna go bad because this always happens. Like, I'll really be interested in this guy, think he's awesome, put him on this pedestal almost. And then I go on a date, it's like blah. And then it was like a really awesome date.
I took her to this restaurant up Draper area, the Ridge. It's this on the mountainside.
Restaurant I've ever been to in my life, probably.
So we went up there. It was kind of it was wintertime. And then I took her.
It was
winter. It was winter. Snow all over. Okay. And after the restaurant, we had just really great conversation, just kind of about interests, and I realized just how interested I was in Leanne on this date. I was like, she's actually really awesome. Like, she's not just a pretty face, you know, like she has ambitions, she has drive, and she wants to accomplish things. And I was like, that's super cool. That's something that I need and I wanted. And after the restaurant, we drove past my favorite golf course, which I just showed her the lookout because it shows the whole Salt Lake Valley, and
it's really pretty.
It's on the same road as the Draper Temple. So then we went to the Draper Temple and sat in the parking lot and read Harry Potter, and we were nudging each other and reading that, and I would correct her to read in Argentino.
And I was like,
el vos, el de ya, que la ya, me llamo, and she was like, no, and I'd be like, me llamo.
No, señor. No.
And I took her home. And so we just had, it was a short date, just a few hours, and it went really well.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun, and
I went home and I was like, crap, now I need to figure out, because I'd been kind of living this double life of like, you know, the single, really fun life of getting to know different guys kind of like Danny, and then this like, I'm trying to figure out what's happening with this guy. And like, I knew a climax was coming where I was like, choose one or the other. And I was like, okay, well, this date kind of like made me be like, crap, like I need to figure this out. So that next weekend, I went and talked to this guy, and I was like, okay, it's either we try dating or we're done. And we decided to be done. And I was like, cool, because I actually feel good about this, because you're a roller coaster. I'm done. And yeah, and then the next weekend was our friend trip to Joshua Tree,
which is where boundaries really came down, because there were 5 of us in a small car. It was a Hyundai Elantra, like not very big for all of our gear for a multiple day trip, but we decided to do it anyway. So we packed in like peanuts.
I just think it's funny because we didn't even use half of that gear.
Most of it was just not even in. But I made sure that I sat next to Leanne, and do you want to tell like your mentality going into the trip?
Yeah. So, okay, obviously the weekend before I just ended things with this guy. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going on this friend trip. I know I'm interested in Danny, but I'm just not even gonna worry about it. I'm gonna go be myself, whatever, and he can take it or leave it. Because I was just so done with dating at this point, where I was like, if they don't like me for me, great. We can just shuffle on through. Like, I'll know. And so I didn't even wash my hair the whole weekend, didn't wear any makeup. Like, I was just crazy wild Leanne, and apparently Danny didn't mind that.
It was awesome. Like on the car ride down, like we got stuck in traffic, and I'm putting both legs out the window from the middle seat. Leanne's hanging out the window yelling at people. Like, it turns out she knew the guy in front of her. And since then we've been playing this game. That whoever runs into someone that they know, the more people that they know wins. You get a point. And so she did, and I was like, rats. And it was just this awesome trip where like boundaries came down. Like, we sat right next to each other in the car, so we cuddled basically the whole way down and the whole way back.
Well, and then okay, it was Valentine's Day that weekend, and we actually held hands for the first time on Valentine's Day as we watched a movie, which was fun.
Which is a story that Jenica should be here to tell. She loves to. Because I have my hand around this. It's mirrored though. She's over here, but I have my hand around her like this, and I'm holding Jenica's head on the other side, because I'm like, I don't want to like make this step. And Jan was like, I don't know what to do with my hand. And Jenica takes it and just puts it right over the hand, and I'm like, thank you.
And he's like, I would have got there by myself.
That's
like,
my
whatever.
story. I'm like, okay, I was totally gonna get there. Like,
you need help.
Like, Jenica just was the catalyst that just sent it, and I'm like, hey, I'm brave. I can do it on my own. Like, we had a great time. Like, we realized we were liking each other, and I'm like, hey, I totally could have done this. Nothing. So we held hands. And the trip back, we held hands the whole way. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna kiss this girl when I drop her off. Like, I was hyped. But like,
you were thinking that?
I was thinking that. I was like, I could kiss her when we drop out. You held my hand the whole trip home. I'm like, what am I supposed to think? I'm like, I could kiss this girl. I'm like going to the next level. And we get back. And I give her a hug, and she basically turns and right away. And she's like, okay, have a good night. Opens up the garage and is gone. And I'm like, and I see her waving at me from the garage, and I'm like, maybe she's not ready for this. Like, I did not know. I'm like, really?
Well, also it was gross. Like, I don't want to kiss him. Like, I had been wearing like a beanie the whole time. Just,
which I love. Super cute in a beanie, okay? But so.
Kissing him was the last thing on my mind. But I was like happy with the way things had gone. But that's funny. I never do that.
We had a great trip, and so I asked her on a second date. And we ended up going to an escape room with Brady and Trina, who's actually doing our videography. You want to give a shout out, Brady? Whoop whoop. Yeah. And so we went to an escape room, and that went great. And Brady and Trina, they told me, they're like, you are yourself around her, because we had met each other scuba diving in Catalina, so they just saw me for me. Like, you are you with her, and I think that she makes you better, so don't miss that. We went to Apollo Burger after, and we just had it's a great time, and I'm thinking, I really want to kiss her, but did not kiss her. And I texted Brady, and I'm like, dude, I don't think she wants to kiss me. I don't think she's interested. And he's like, did you try and kiss her? And I'm like, well, not really. I don't know. I don't know what she's thinking. I can't read her.
Because apparently he had this thing in his mind that he didn't want to kiss me in the car. And I was thinking, like, expecting he would probably kiss me in the car. So we were on two different.
I was like, because I saw so much potential in Leanne, I was like, I don't want our first kiss to be like this dud, like lean over, like, hey, how are you? Good night, sleep well, get out. You know? Like, no, I wanted it to be something memorable. A kiss that is memorable. And it was.
Okay, but before, so I'm also like, okay, when is he gonna kiss me? Like, I feel like he's gonna kiss me. We go rock climbing this one night, and as we're rock climbing, our friend
Hold on, that was after snowshoeing.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
She invites me to come snowshoeing up here at Brighton, where we are. And I'm like, yes, like I know that she likes me now.
That was the
like,
first time I had invited him to do anything.
And I was like, okay, I know that she kind of likes me, all right? So I was so excited. I'm like, yes, we're going snowshoeing. And so
I was so happy he was down to go.
So we were working from home still, so I had managed my schedule, so I got to come with Leanne. I worked around it. We came up and we had a great time. Snowshoeing, there were so many opportunities for me to kiss her. Like, awesome opportunities, like sitting on a rock over here, beautiful spot. I was like, I could just lean over. Didn't, just blew it again, like this whole thing.
I even tackled him in the snow.
I was like, bring it on. I let her tackle me in the snow.
And he didn't even kiss me. I was like,
and
what?
She's like over me like this, and I'm like, I could do it now. Didn't do it. We get back to the car and we're driving back.
I was so done as well. I was like, what is happening?
And Leanne's like, can we be honest about how we feel? And I'm like, yeah, do you want me to go first?
It's like, have we been dating long enough to actually like say out loud? Because I just hate this whole beating around the bush thing.
To which I respond, I really like you, Leanne. And I want to keep dating you.
I was like, great, we're on the same page.
And that was that.
Yeah, that was basically.
So then we went We'd gone to Topgolf with friends where we sat together and cuddled, held hands, stuff.
That was like, I feel like the first public.
Yep, they were like, hey, we're kind of an item.
Yeah.
Besides the movie with holding hands with our friends, you know.
That's true.
We went rock climbing one night and I was like, hey, I want to show you something after.
And I was like, okay, this is it. Like, he's gonna kiss me tonight.
And I look at her and I say,
he drives me up to this parking lot, this beautiful overlook and everything.
Like, I know what I know you're wondering why I brought you here.
I'm like,
and she's like looking at me like, I'm like, I'm gonna teach you how to dance, get out of the car.
I was like, what?
So we danced together in the parking lot and just had a great time. We ended up talking until like 12:30 that night and still had work the next day. Still didn't kiss her.
Yeah, keep in mind, he still didn't kiss me.
The next week.
It's cute though.
The next week. So we've been dating now for like over a month, and I still have not kissed her, which shows how much I really like Leanne, because I feel like if I kissed you really early, it was like too easy. And I'm like, okay. But Leanne, I was like, I want to make sure it's special. I don't know if I can do it. I'm nervous about it. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it.
This is a man who has kissed his fair number of ladies.
No.
Just keep that in mind.
Loose lips George here.
This is why he was a struggle in high school.
And so then I was like, okay, Tuesday night I'm gonna ask her to hang out. We're gonna go out and I'm gonna kiss her. Like, I'm gonna make sure it happens. Like, we went to Cubby's and got food and then went to this park. And we were eating Cubby's, and I had made this really cute playlist of country songs. Oh, yeah. Where I had, like, in the country songs, I had put a song by Gloriana that's Kissed You Good Night, but I put like the artist and then the name of the song. And then after I put Danny G, Hope Too Soon, I Really Like You as 2 songs. And she texted me that day and she's like, who's Danny G? I don't know this artist. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
I'm like genuinely looking up these songs, like with these names. I can't find them. I can't find them. Like, there's no songs by Danny G with these. I was like, what is he doing? Like, I never expect guys to be cute, ever. Like, or romantic or do anything like cutesy like this. So this is like way over Leanne's head.
So that night, we're sitting and eating our Cubby's sweet potato fries, 5 out of 5.
So good.
And I was like, I had to explain to her.
Yeah, I was like, please explain to me.
I had explained that I was like, I hope to kiss you soon. And we still didn't kiss in the car. So we got out, we played on the park, on the play set, everything. And then we went over to this little kind of forested area in the park. And I'm like getting ready to like kiss Leanne.
And she's like, I'm so good at ruining things.
She's like, I have a secret. And I'm like, she's gonna tell me that she wants to kiss me. Like, I'm so hyped. And she's like, I know where you live.
I was like, because my ex-boyfriend lived 3 houses from Danny. And I was like, you know, stalking Danny on LDS Tools like 2 weeks before. Like a couple weeks before. And I like see his address and I'm like, no way. No way. Are you serious? I was livid when
plot twist.
Yeah, and so like he's like talking about where he lives and all these things. I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure that's nice. Like, I know exactly what he's talking about. I was like, I need to tell him, because I was like so scared that something would happen. Like I'd go to his house or whatever, and we'd like run into my ex or something, and I'd be like, hey, yeah, like, you know, like I was like, I gotta be honest with him up front. So that's happened.
So she's like, I got a secret to tell you. I know where you live. My ex-boyfriend lives 3 houses down, and I'm like, that guy? Like, that's the guy? I'm like, oh my gosh. But I was dedicated. I was like, I'm not letting this ruin my night. I was like, I have a secret too. I'm like, Leanne, I have wanted to kiss you for the longest time.
Said it just like that.
And she's like, does that mean you're gonna kiss me now? I'm like, well, I'm gonna try. And I came in.
Finally kissed me. And I like decided, I was like, I'm gonna wait till he kisses me, because I have a bad habit of like kissing the guy first. And I was like, I was determined to let him kiss me first. And I'm so glad I waited, because it was far better that way. So, no, for future generations, wait for the guy.
That was great. There was some celebration afterwards.
Yeah, there was.
Spun her around. I went, yes, finally. Because then I was in. I was on the in. I could kiss her now really almost whenever I wanted.
Maybe.
We went to a group camp out, and my grandpa died that same day. And we went up, and Leanne was super understanding and supportive of me, and didn't really ask a lot of questions. It was just kind of present with me. And that was when I think, like, I could see myself being with this girl, because she didn't worry about things. She was just kind of present with me, and she wanted just to know that she was there if I needed her, but it wasn't gonna push it. So I love that. And so our dating just kind of continued. We kept doing stuff. Our relationship just continued to build. Any memories in between then and Trav's wedding that you can think of?
Moab trip was super fun. I loved that.
That's right, our
That
Moab
was
trip.
super fun. Like, it was like, I felt like our first trip together with our friends, where we were like obviously dating at that point. And I just like, it was so fun. Like that was my favorite thing about me and Danny, is like, we just could be, we were best friends. Like, we were just goofing off, like having fun in the canyons. And this was like my first like big canyoneering trip. And like Danny was so patient and so supportive, and just like, I like hated it when like guys are like, oh, you can't do this, like, whatever. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm gonna do it. Like, I have 5 older brothers, like, I'm fine. And like, there was like a point where there was like a climb that we had to do, and someone had to like kind of lead climb it. It wasn't like a big climb. It was like just a steep hike. I don't know. And they're like, we need someone to do it and bring the rope. And I was like, I'll do it. And like, Danny's like, yeah, go ahead. And I was like, I'm like,
you go, sister. I'll be here. I'll wait.
Thank you. Like, wow, that is awesome. Instead of being like, no, I'll do it for you. Like, you know, like he just, you know, knew I was capable. And I was like, this is what I want. And a guy who's like, yeah, you're perfectly capable of doing this. Go and do it.
I would like send everyone down on the rappels. And then I would wait for Leanne, so then we could kiss a little bit at the top. And then I'd send her down, and then I'd come down. Yeah, a little bit of love story. And so yeah, and she told me, she was like, big bonus points for you there. Like, that was a big, so I was like, oh, he's good. I like it. So I had this great trip, and I think our relationship, like from there, it just continued to get better and better.
Yeah, we never had like an official like, okay,
this is when we're dating.
Boyfriend, girlfriend as of now. Like, it was more of kind of just a thing we morphed into, because I was like not ready to call him my boyfriend yet for a little bit, until like it felt right.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I just didn't want to force it.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
We'd sit together in church and kind of like nudge each other, but we wouldn't hold hands in church just because it wasn't official. But then I remember one Sunday she was like, I really just want to reach over and grab your hand, hold it, you know? And after that, we started holding hands in church, and it was kind of like this, like, hey, yeah, we're exclusive. But whenever people ask, we're like, we've been dating since February.
Yeah.
This is when our story really began. I can't think of anything else until Trav's wedding.
Yeah, me either.
So one of my best friends, Travis, shout out to him if he ever sees this. He was getting married on May 1st. And Leanne and I had been dating for a while, but we hadn't said I love you. And there have been moments where I wanted to, but I was like, no, I'm gonna wait. And
again, like, I wanted him to say it first. Like, I'd always been the one who said it first. I was like, no, I want him to say it first.
So there are moments where we'd have that, and we had during this whole time, should be mentioned, we were going over this list of 110 questions that you should ask before getting married. We'd gone to a fireside that night where I played the piano, and after Leanne and I had just a really big heart-to-heart about kind of our lives, our weaknesses, the things that we've been through. It was like
real talk. Are we dating like for real or not? Because I was like at the point, I mean, I was older, I dated a lot, and I was like, I'm done with this whole like, yeah, let's date for fun. I was like, no, are you dating to get married or not? Like, what is this?
We stayed out till 2:30 that night.
That's the latest I think we've stayed
That
out.
was the only time we ever did that. Because then we grew up and we're like, we're adults, we need to go to work. we're like, we're too old for this. But those questions, like, we really just kind of built this communication. We had already communicated really well before, but just we could really talk about issues. And the nice thing is that we're not the same. We have very different viewpoints on a lot of things, but we're very passionate about different things. So she'll be very passionate about something where I can kind of just let her get on and talk about it, and then she does the same for me. And then if we're both passionate about it, we can communicate why we feel the way we do.
But it's really nice because, like, sometimes I get on my soapbox and I just need someone to just listen and not be equal passion. Just be like, wow, that's awesome. You're really passionate about that. I'm like, yes, hear me out. I have a really good argument about this. And Danny would just listen, and it was great.
So Trav's wedding comes up, and I'm one of the groomsmen, and I take Leanne with me. And we just had this awesome day. And while we were taking pictures, like, after a picture, I got to look over and see Leanne, and we'd smile at each other. This little thing. And we went to the dinner and the reception. And after, Leanne loves to go and, like, get into places that probably we shouldn't.
I just like exploring,
She's like,
okay?
the door's open.
I was like, I want to see if we can get to the roof. Like, I feel like there's stairs here. Like, why don't we take them? There's no do not come past enter here. There's no trespassing.
So we find ourselves on the roof after this reception. And
which was really cool.
Really cool see all these lights, and I'm like, I'm gonna tell her that I love her. I'm gonna tell her. And
I was thinking, I was like, this is it. This is where it's gonna happen. This is a great spot.
And I'm giving her a hug, and she kind of pulls me in, and she's like, Danny, I really like you. And I was like, that's not how I saw that going. Like, same thing, and not reading, I'm like, so I decided I wasn't gonna tell her that I love her, because I'm like, well, she probably doesn't feel the same, otherwise she would have said it, right? I'm like, no. But we had this perfect view of the Ogden Temple, and we walked over there, and I was hugging her, and we were looking at the Ogden Temple, and I was like, I could see, watching Trav and Liv today, I could see that being us. And she's like, I can too. And that was my roundabout way of saying I love you. Like, you know, like, I could see myself marrying you. Like, here's a soft toss for you, baby. To which she did not say I love you. So I was like
determined not to say it first.
We start driving home, and in the car I was kind of like, Leanne, that was kind of my roundabout way. I was nervous about saying this, but I love you. In the car we're driving home, and she's like, I love you too. And that Sunday,
and we kind of laughed about the irony of that we said it in the car.
I wouldn't kiss her in the car, but I'd say I love her in the car. And fine. Sunday we're at church and we are just giddy. We love each other.
We love birds.
It's super fun. So this is in May, and we then started kind of talking more about marriage. We've been talking about the questions. We felt like we could be there, you know? And so we started talking. We were like, theoretically, if we were to get married, when would it be? And we both said October. We get married in October.
Like, that sounds about right. And I was like, it's my favorite month of the year, so, you know, might as well do something special then, because I don't really like Halloween, but I love October.
And so we started talking about it with like colors and like idea, like bridesmaids, groomsmen, like things like that, like where we'd get married, etc. And on May 17th, I actually looked back at my emails for this. Leanne and I had talked about making a date with the temple. And she made a sealing date, like, and I had always teased.
Well, he had agreed. Like,
yeah, I was like, let's do it. Like, I'd always.
So I was free
people.
At work, and I was like, well, what?
So I get a text. She's like, I made the appointment, and I got the confirmation email, and I'm like,
oh shoot.
Oh baby, it's getting real.
Like, things just got real.
Oh no. And
I was like, we can always cancel it. This is why you start with this, because you can always cancel that. And that's the most important thing, anyways.
We started meeting with her friend Camilla Moon as a wedding planner, and she started planning our stuff. And so we started planning this wedding with ourselves, kind of under the radar, without our parents knowing.
Yeah, anyone.
And we were like, yeah. We're doing it. Like, we booked a venue, Wheeler Farm. We got a photographer, all these things. We're like, we should probably tell our parents, like, so because they're gonna help pay for this. Like, we should probably let them know. So we bring in our parents and tell them, like, hey, we're getting married. Like, we're planning on it. And I went and I talked to her dad, and I just kind of met with him. I was like, I love Leanne, and I really want to marry her. And he just had told me, he's like, yeah, we love having you with the family. We think you really compliment Leanne, and we love that. And I was like, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because we plan to go ring shopping on Saturday. It was Wednesday. I'm like, yeah, I'm so glad you said yes. Otherwise, I would have to cancel all these things.
Yeah, I just felt like I loved how we did it, because it was just like this step-by-step process, and like each step we made, like I just felt good about it. I was like, okay, still feeling good. And I would just be praying. I'd be like, hey God, like, I'm going with this, like, any signs, like, we should stop, like, let me know, please, like, put something down if I'm not. And everything just kept going and kept feeling right.
And our friendship, like we had learned, like, our friendship kind of kept us steady on moments when we were like, you know, I'm having a rough day, or our romance was kind of like not as strong as we wanted it to be. Our friendship like kept us there, and
we had our ups and downs. Like, this wasn't all like sunshines and rainbows. Like,
there were times when I was like, I don't know, I'm really unsure about this, and there were times when she was like, I've just been having second thoughts and I'm kind of nervous about it. So that went back and forth. It wasn't like it was just like we figured it out and then it was all breezy.
No, there was like doubts. I mean, realistic questions of like, is this really what I want? Like, stuff like that. So. But
we ended up going and designing the ring. And I tried to add in some things. I was like, I should probably check that with Leanne. And she was like, I don't like that. So I'm glad that we stuck with her design, which is honestly much better. It's so beautiful, look. And so we got the ring, and then came kind of the planning, the proposal. I was like, okay. And
I'm curious about this part.
And I was like, okay, I wanna do something special. I feel like everyone like will like set up like the blanket with like the pictures of them, and I was like, that's cute, but I don't feel like that's us. And I'm like, okay, when can I do it? And it all depended on when the ring came. I'm like, okay. And the ring came the Friday before my little brother came home. And I was like, okay, I can't propose over the weekend because that's going to step on him, you know, his thunder. But Leanne and I were going up to her cabin, her favorite place in the world, that Monday through Thursday. And I was like, perfect. Perfect. So I got the ring and I started planning. I was like, okay, where could I do it? And I kind of had like let her mom, Barbara. I let Barbara know this is where I'm gonna propose to Leanne over the weekend, okay? So I made sure I had the box. My little sister was like, you have it? Do you have it? Like checking with me before we left. I'm like,
I got it.
So we went to Jacob's.
Okay, but wait, what about when me getting sick?
Oh, wait, hang on. Well, so for her birthday, I had, I think I'll just mention this quickly. Yeah. For her birthday, I had kind of written an improv song for her just out of the blue.
We're having a jam session.
And I wrote this song for her, and I decided to use that. On her birthday too, there had been I had been kind of hurt feelings with her and kind of her ex and some things that had happened. And Leanne had just like decided, she's like, you know what, I'm gonna just start getting rid of stuff that reminds me of him, because I'm dedicated to you, and I feel like I've been holding on to that just in case, but I'm in. And that was just like such a cool moment that she was like, hey, no, I'm getting rid of these things, like I'm moving on from that, I'm all in, like if you are too. And I'm like, okay. And I feel like our relationship grew so much then. And then we were just, I feel like, on the same page. So I took the song that I had written for her birthday and I modified it, and I was so excited. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this for the cabin, it's gonna be great. We had like this great time for my birthday, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna propose in just a couple days. And she gets sick, and she thinks she has COVID or
I just had like this terrible sore throat, like I was not feeling great. And I was like, oh no, like what if I can't really go to the cabin, like all these things. So I get tested for strep, tested for COVID, like luckily they all came back negative.
But I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to propose, like, if we can't go, maybe I should. I'm like, oh gosh. But luckily we went.
Yes.
And I couldn't kiss her that whole first day because she was on her medication. We're playing it safe, you know.
I didn't want to get him sick.
Yeah. But Wednesday, I was like, okay, I decided, I kind of picked out the spot because now I'd seen the cabin and I knew. And after dinner one evening, I had hid the ring box in the guitar case. And I was like, I want to show you the song that I was working on. He was
kind enough to let me shower before. So
like shower, like let's go. And I was like, let's go. She's like, do we need the case? And I'm like, yeah, we definitely need the case. Like, we don't want to scratch the guitar. I was making up an excuse so I could keep the case.
I'm just so trusting. I'm like, okay, he just wants it his way.
And we get down there, and I take out the guitar, and I'm like, okay, will you record this for me? I wanna compare it to the original for the birthday song.
Okay, and I had gone into like going to the trip, like I hadn't even thought of him like proposing during this week until like my coworkers were like, oh yeah, you're gonna come back with the ring. And I was like, what? But then I go into the trip and I was like, you know what, don't even think about it. Don't expect anything, because you don't want to be disappointed if he doesn't propose. Like, so I was trying not to expect anything, and we're going down. I was like, maybe. I was like, no, Leanne, no, like, don't expect anything.
So I pull out the guitar and I record this and I start singing, and in the song I'm like, I just want to be with you for eternity. So marry me, we'll start a family, marry me, like, we'll live happily, you and me.
Is this a proposal, or is he just referring to the fact that we're already planning on getting married? Like,
and so after the song, she cuts the recording and I put the guitar down and I reach into the guitar case and pull out the box. And I get down on one knee and I say, you know, I don't have much practice doing this.
I was like, I would hope not.
And I said, Leanne, I love you so much, and I want to be with you forever. So will you marry me? And she said,
I said no. Just kidding.
Really? And then we joked when people were like, well, she obviously said yes. These bugs now. These are bugs, not us like being emotional. Okay, for people that are gonna watch this. But it's very emotional. And someone asked how I proposed later, because she obviously said yes. And we went and we told her family, and they were like,
freaking out just like that.
So excited, and we are too. So excited. But someone was like, how did you propose? And I was like, I threw the ring at her head and I was like, yo baby, you down? You in? And she's like,
No.
I'm like, yeah.
No.
And ever since we've been engaged, it's been so nice because now it's not like this secret wedding that we've been planning. Now everyone can know. We've been asking people to participate.
Talk openly about it. It's great.
And we're super excited for October. I don't think I ever told you this, but I had talked to my old seminary teacher after my last relationship, and I was like, I just don't know. I felt like that was good and it would work out. And he's like, Dan, you really need to focus on the kind of girl that you need in your life. And I started making notes of the kind of girl that I need, and I found I need someone who's talented, that is musical, that has their own opinions, and that is tough, really. And tough with me is like, hey, you're being a bum, like, get up. And I found her. And I'm so glad that I did. Did you want to say anything nice to me for the closing? No.
Just kidding. No, Dan. Sorry, Danny's more romantic than I am. Thank goodness.
We rehearsed this. No, we didn't.
No, I'm super grateful for Danny because, yeah, like I said, like my favorite thing is I've dated other guys like for long periods of time, but I've never been so comfortable with a person as I am with Danny. I'm so safe with him. I can be completely myself with him, and I love it so much. Like, we have so much fun together. Dan has that, like, I've always felt like I needed a guy who could balance, like, kind of be that support that my dad gives to me when I, like, get in these, like, oh my gosh, the world is ending, all these things, and, like, just this calm presence of, like, let's walk through this logically. And Danny will do it for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, he does that for me. Like, my dad does that for me. No other guys have done that for me. Like, this is it. I found it. And, like, huge bonus that he can play the piano and sing in his musical. And
really well.
Yeah, very well. Let's add that. And that he's athletic. Oh, awesome. And
so is Leanne. Leanne's a much better climber than I am. Like, if we really could compare, I'm like, dang. But I'm not like, I don't feel...
But we're both
What's
athletic.
The word?
I don't know.
I don't feel... Brady?
Intimidated.
Intimidated! Yeah, this is why we haven't. I don't feel intimidated though. I just feel very comfortable. Like on that trip where I was like, you go, you got this, I'll stay here.
But we can like compete, but like in a fun way, and we can have long, like I can talk to Danny for like hours about just whatever. And it's those little things that to me like piece together with the added bonus of how attractive he is. Like, that I'm like, yeah, I'd be stupid not to marry this guy. So
forever,
yeah,
here we come.
Dun, dun, dun.
I think that's it for us.
That's
our story.
It's still going.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.